She's in.
Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this District 8 League Council Candidates Forum. My name is Jeff Worthall. I'm the president of Central Park United Neighbors. If you're not familiar with this organization, we're the registered neighborhood organization for the Central Park community. Our mission really is to create opportunity for residents to engage on things that they're passionate about, and to create forums like this one for our community to participate in on whenever there's important issues. So if you're interested in learning more about our organization, Central Park United Neighbors at .com, or check out our Facebook page as well. I want to start with a few thank yous. First to our CPUN's forum committee, our mayor, Liz Stallmaker, Amanda Stowe, all the work that they've put into making this thing happen. Thank you very much to them. Thank you as well to the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities and Brian Weber. It's been a great champion and supporter of this event, as well as all things Central Park United Neighbors. Thank you to the MCA for hosting us in this fantastic space. It's perfect. Really great performance over here. Help. Thank you to the Central Park Business Association, their president Jeff Ederer is over here. They provided snacks in the back. You're able to help yourself to those. Let's see. Thank you to all of you for coming out on a snowy night. It's much appreciated. Just so you know, this is also being recorded and live streamed over Zoom, and we'll be sharing this with the community at large as well. So thank you for coming out. It's great to see some of the engaged residents. And finally, I want to thank the candidates that we have here for City Council today. I think running for office is a big thing to do. It's a big commitment, and it's an act of good faith. And I really appreciate all of the candidates on the stage for offering that to District 8. So thank you to them. So I'll just quickly run through the format, and then we'll get started. So the way this will work is that the first 60 to 75 minutes or so is going to be a Q&A style format. I'll let every candidate have 3 minutes to make kind of a prepared opening remark. There's an iPad here that they can look at to see just how much time they have left before we start tapping on shoulders. The order in which that they'll be asked to come to the stage and randomized. Additionally, once we've concluded that portion, I have 3 to 4 prepared questions. They have not seen the questions. They will also be asked to answer those questions in a random order, one at a time. Once we've done that, then we're going to open it up so that they can all meet you and answer your questions directly, and that's where we'll we want to mention that we've also submitted 5 questions that we give the kind of time for, but we know are important to the community on issues ranging from traffic to housing. The candidates have all been invited to provide written responses, circulate those on time over email on our website so we can get additional information there. So one thing I do want to make sure that is we're being perfectly transparent about is that one of the candidates, Brad, there is a sitting CPUN board member. But Brad, I can assure you, has no advanced knowledge of anything. He's received no favoritism in this event, and CPUN has conducted itself with complete integrity in making sure that this event is fair to all of the candidates. So thank you for that. All right, let's get started. So for introduction, we're going to start with Richard. Oh, wow. Richard's in there.
Okay. I'm going to bring my notes, otherwise I won't stay on script. Okay, 3 minutes. Hello, my name is Richard Zuri. I am running for City Council District 8. I am a Denver native. I have lived all of my life here. A couple years I've done other things, but I have learned here. I've been educated here. I went to Denver Public Schools. I even have a degree at Steve Denver in biology. I started my family here. I have 3 young people that I call my children. I am a partner to my family. And so what I've done here as a resident is just live my life. It wasn't until I left to Florida to join the AmeriCorps, where we have to take a vow of poverty. So I worked on behalf of adoptive and foster care kids to have forever homes. It was that experience and service that led me into when I came back to Colorado to join with the Dr. King Jr. Parade. I am the co-chair of the largest celebration of Dr. King Jr. in the nation. But my purpose is service. And so doing that work 13 years led me to be hired as a community connector in Denver, in our districts. And so I work specifically with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, doing the work of our districts. One of the things that I've been fortunate is that the way we do community engagement as a community connector, we value community partnerships. I've actually had a lot of training from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. I've gone through the block captain training. I've also been identified to moderate 3 of the latest legislative panels. So that all is important because it was the community that kind of had molded me into what I am now. I've worked with the Northeast Transportation Connection, which is also for the Foundation of Sustainable Urban Communities, with the Montbello Connector in Montbello. Now has moved into Boulder, Larry, Swansea. I tell you all of that to show you that I've been doing the work for a long time. My purpose is service, and that is led me to what I do now. I've also been the president and the secretary of the East Coast Black Neighborhood Association. I am a part of this community. I've been doing work. You can see by my volunteer efforts, the way I work with the city and county of Denver. I'm just happy to be here and happy for this debate. Thank you for having me.
Christian Stewart. Next up is Tyler Drum.
Hi, my name is Tyler Drum, and I'm running for Denver City Council District 8. Sure. So I have lived in Montbello 7 years, most of my adult life. I grew up in Roxborough, Colorado, in the suburbs, and I went to Colorado State University and got my bachelor's degree in political science and history. I'm a triplet, and so teamwork is literally in my DNA. And my sister is a teacher at our old elementary school, Roxborough Elementary. I have, since I've been living in Montbello, I've been the chair for the Democratic Party for House District 7 for the past roughly 5 years, and I had to resign in order to do this. So I've been really involved with helping progressive candidates and getting progressive causes on the ballot. What was really important to me as the leader for the Denver Democrats was to make our party more inclusive to Spanish speakers. So that was a main focus of mine. We made sure to do Spanish language radio ads around the election, and to just be proactively out in the community, regardless of if it's election time or not. I'm running for city council because I feel like my neighborhood has been overlooked by the past city councils. And I think that while bike paths and safe streets and Central Park are, very important to our neighborhood in our district, I think it's also important that we address the food deserts in the district in Montbello and Park Hill, that we address public transit. So my husband is a Ukrainian refugee, and when the war started, my mother-in-law moved in with us. And it has been an eye-opening experience for our family to go through, well, the dichotomy of how refugees, so my husband wasn't able to get accepted into the United States refugee program, but my mother-in-law was. So he was accepted as a refugee in Canada. And so the experience that we faced between my mother-in-law in America and my husband in Canada has been eye-opening to how much better things could be. We feel completely embraced by Canada, and it has been an uphill battle of paperwork in America. And so it has been really eye-opening to some of the changes that we can make on the local level to help other refugees like my family. And one of those is public transit. And so in Ukraine, they have really good public transit. My family has never learned how to drive. And so being in a car-dependent world in the far Northeast, it has been quite a change for them. So that is something that would be very important to me is to better embrace refugees and make it so that they can, and all of us can get better around this town. I also think gentrification is a really important issue. So in East Colfax, there's a lot of luxury developments going up. And so that's something I would like to address. Thank you very much. And
Oh, good. Thank you, Tyler. Leslie Torgowski, you're next.
Thanks. Hi, guys. My name is Leslie Twargowski. I have a really long last name, so if you feel more comfortable just calling me Leslie T, feel free to do so. I'm a lifelong Denver resident. I was born and raised here on Denver's east side, and my family and I have been living off 17th in Quebec for over 20 years now. During that time, we've seen a significant increase in crime, and we have a significantly less safe neighborhood. In my own home, we had a person about a month ago just try to gain entry while I was home alone. And just nearby on the next block, we had a woman who was followed into her garage. And it took 40 minutes for DPD to show up. I'm really worried about the state of our entire district, not just Central Park, but all the neighborhoods within. And I think that my background lends itself to helping solve some of these problems. And I'll go into this just very briefly. For the last 9 years, I've served as the executive director of the Federal Boulevard Business Improvement District on Denver's west side. They too have seen an increase in crime over there, but what we've been trying to do is support our local businesses and keep them local in the face of development and increased lease amounts and rent amounts. Furthermore, as some of you know me, I was the appointee of Councilman Chris Herndon for the District 8 to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I served on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for 10 years, 6 years as its chairperson, and we helped get 2A, the Denver Parks tax, off the ground. It's something that we're very proud of for more parks acquisition. And in my experience on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, it came to my attention that the Department of Transportation didn't have an advisory board. So with the work of City Council, I was able to suggest a charter change that was approved by Denver voters in 2020. And I want to thank any of you voters for bringing that into action. All of us have problems and interaction with the Department of Transportation, and this has created an avenue for you all to speak, public speaking, to our executive directors in the Department of Transportation, which up until now have been really hard to get a hold of. Other things I want to focus on is the Quebec Street Corridor. Right now I'm on the Quebec Multimodal Transportation Team, stakeholder group. It's slow going, but it's going. And finally, I want to work really hard on having a safer transportation system that includes the park and rides where cars keep getting broken into, that includes the 15L, that includes our buses and our trains. So knowing that I've got 15 seconds left, I just want to say thank you to the MCA for having us all here, and I look forward to delving deep into these issues tonight. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brad Rivera, and I'm running for the next Denver City Council person for District 8. I'm a proud dad of 2 little girls we call our forces of nature. And we live on the south end of Central Park here. I'm also a proud husband. I'm glad to have my wife here tonight. And then I'm an attorney by training, and I've been leading in this community. My background is when I graduated from college at CU Boulder and came down to Denver, I started volunteering for then State Senator Mike Johnston, one of the 20 people running for mayor. And I ran his citizen policy committees, which was this idea that ordinary neighbors could talk to their representative and come up with policy ideas that could be introduced to the Capitol, not special interests and not lobbyists. And that experience so inspired me that I actually quit my corporate job and enrolled in law school. And while I was there, I gained a mentor and ended up working for Attorney General Phil Weiser. That experience, building upon that, led me to help launch Denver and Colorado's youth apprenticeship system, where young people in Denver public school students have taken advantage of it. There's hundreds of kids that now work part-time, they go to school part-time, they work part-time training for real middle class jobs, and they earn a year's worth of college credit while they're getting paid. And I was the one who actually negotiated the partnership with the city and county of Denver as an employer. They started with 3 students, now they have 15, and they're now working in departments all over the city. Not only giving opportunities to young people, but also to help solve some of the staffing issues that Denver has. And who better to run this city than the people who will inherit one day than our youth. I'm running for this seat because I don't think you should need to be a millionaire to live in Denver anymore. And it's becoming apparent and it's becoming clear that with rising affordability costs and rising cost of housing, you need to really make a lot of money to be able to live in this city. And that's just not fair. It's not fair to young people. It's not fair to young people who want to start a family and stay in Denver. And it's not fair to our seniors who are living on fixed incomes to help build this city. The other things I hear when I'm out talking to folks across District 8 are public safety, safe streets to walk and bike with kids, families, seniors, and then make sure we're investing in our neighborhoods, those assets and amenities that we all need to make sure that our families can live a good life. So I look forward to all the questions that we have tonight as part of the forum, and then also your questions afterwards here tonight. But I just want to say thank you all for doing your civic duty and braving the cold to come to this ice bowl of a community forum. So thank you very much.
And last, we have Chantel.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chantel Lewis. I'm running for Denver City Council District 8. And I'll start by telling you all a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I actually grew up around the time of busing. And so I was bused from my neighborhood in 5 Points to a neighborhood that was more affluent, had more resources. And so at a very young age, I became aware of what it meant to provide access and what barriers existed to that access. And in our case, it was transportation because my mom was often off dealing with the ills of poverty. And so we were responsible for getting ourselves up in the morning. And sometimes, as kids do, which is probably not a surprise to you, we missed the bus. And if my neighbor wasn't home and we didn't have the 10 cents to get on the bus, it was 10 cents back there. Back then, I know it's probably surprising at this point because nothing costs that much at this point. We didn't go to school. And so that really helped to help me understand what inequities look like in education and also what it looked like to provide access without really understanding the communities that you were serving. And that has really threaded my pursuit to justice. And so I served on the RTD board, one of 3 publicly elected boards, because transportation is really the through line to the issues that we're going to be talking about today. We talk about housing, if we talk about education, if we talk about healthcare, if we talk about criminal justice, transportation is that through line. And a really important issue to me because of that through line. And I also understand transportation to be a great societal equalizer. And so I have a really near and dear topic to my heart. One of the things that I prioritize is people over process. And I will talk to you all about the work that I've done in prioritizing people over my politics. So I had the pleasure of working for Denver Public Schools, pleasure most of the time. I didn't want to lie to y'all. Scott there he goes. I had the pleasure of working for Denver Public Schools, and I was able to lead our largest family and community engagement team. And so what I do know is that we were really doing to communities and not doing with communities. And so really changed the way that we did family and community engagement at Denver Public Schools. In addition to that, I had the pleasure of working as the VP at the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, really understanding not only homelessness, but the root causes of homelessness and the solutions to homelessness. And I couldn't think of a better person to be on city council than someone who understands these issues, not only from a professional expertise, but from a lived expertise. And so that's why I am running for Denver City Council, because I think the time is right now that we prioritize our people over our politics. And I've shown you all that's exactly what I do on the board of RTD. Thank you.
I didn't do that to you.
That's not it.
Okay, so we're gonna do the Q&A portion next, and as our forum committee was thinking about questions to prioritize here, one of the things we discussed was that we didn't feel that residents always have a great sense of what city council actually does and doesn't do. So I was wondering if you could talk about what you feel like are the most essential responsibilities of a city council person, and why your background or experience makes you the best fit for the role. And that will be the same question that's asked of all of you.
Yeah, so. I don't want to cheat here. So when we talk about Denver City Council, the things that Denver City Council does is approve a lot of contracts, to be completely honest with you. But the reason that I'm interested in Denver City Council is because of my desire to co-govern. When I was elected to the RTD board, the scariest thing about being elected is that folks would get you elected and then they go away. And you don't have the opportunity to converse and to dialogue and to figure out from their experiences, from the things that are important to you all, how do you turn those things into policy? And so that is my interest, is co-governing, really understanding what are the pain points for each one of you? What are the pain points in different areas to be able to target? And if you all are familiar with targeted universalism, where you're able to identify, like, here's our goal as a community, as a city, and understanding that we can take different pathways depending on the neighborhoods or the communities or the demographics that we're working in to be able to get us to that shared goal and that shared definition. So when we talk about Denver City Council, for me personally, it's all about co-governance. How can you and I work together to create that shared vision for our cities and our communities, to ensure that we are investing in our greatest assets? Y'all, it's each one of you. I believe that you all are our greatest assets, to ensure that the health of our cities are quite literally the wealth of our cities, because we are investing in our communities.
I love this question, because a lot of people just don't know. What does city council actually do? So I'm going to start with what I think is the most important one, which is constituent services. That's working with all of you. City council is not the ones that fill potholes, but if you tell us there's a pothole, then it's our job to go work with the city and the departments controlled by the mayor to make sure that pothole gets filled. And one of the things I'm really excited about is, in a plan I released on my website around how we're going to do constituent services, is I want to make sure we have a community cabinet that has folks from all different corners of the district, and all different walks of life, so that we can, similar to as Chantel mentioned, is not only co-govern, but just make sure people feel heard. Make sure people feel represented, and make sure that there is an actual way, similar to like what I did for then State Senator Mike Johnston. There's a way for ideas to filter up, and we can inform policy for how we do things. Some other things I just scribbled down because I remember them, is obviously a big one that city council controls is land use and zoning. That is the purview of city council. So if you've ever wondered why, say, Central Park's land use looks different than another neighborhood's or vice versa, that's controlled by city council. If you want to build an accessory dwelling unit in your backyard, that has to go through city council. So I think that's a really important role as we think about the future of our cities and how we address the housing crisis, the housing affordability crisis. That's something city council is going to do. And we need to take a lot of action on that. The other one I think that is a relatively new power of city council is confirming mayoral appointees. So making sure there's a check on the mayor to make sure that their appointees are highly qualified and we think they're going to do a good job. That's part of city council's rules now. I think the last one, is any contracts with the city for over $500,000. City council has to approve those. There's an additional check and accountability to make sure that we're spending your money wisely too. Thank you.
All right, so there are 3 roles of city council. Mayoral appointee, which is important to my particular position. I work with that. So the mayoral appointee was he was a person who actually took my whole team from the Department of Public Health and Environment and brought us over to Dottie so we can do community engagement. That's the reason he did that, is we wanted to make sure that this department that was archaic when it came to community engagement would be able to do community engagement the right way. And so he saw our team and brought us over. We were actually the first team to be implemented into the department over 100 years of history. It used to be different public works. Okay, so mayoral appointees matter, right? That's how I get to the position I'm in, having one of the unique positions as a community connector. The other one is we are the ones who craft and approve budget, right? So one thing about where you help control where the money goes. When you can do that, the impact that you have is substantial. You want to work with community partners, developers, resident leaders to be able to make sure that they are getting the money that they need to do the work that they're already doing. The most important part of city council is making laws. We make the laws. We make the laws and we amend the laws. That's important when you think about the impacts for generations that come after you. You make a vision of a city depending on what the community wants. And that's how it should be. A lot of my panelists also agree that we need to do co-governance, and that's really, really important when we talk about making laws. Building the relationships for the people who are on the ground doing the work, that is what's important. They're the ones who are the experts and give us the expertise to be able to craft the laws. So we need to give power to more of those, and so that's my answer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Leslie Torres.
The folks who got up here before me were pretty articulate in what city council's jobs are gonna be. One that was gonna take up a lot of our time in the months coming forward in District 8 is land use and zoning. This won't impact the Central Park neighborhood so much, but there's a vast amount of Northeast Park Hill that is right now without a neighborhood area plan. So I expect that to be a big thing coming up. Right now, I currently serve on the stakeholder group for the Near Northwest Area Plan, and we're trying to write a plan that is going to be more effective than the East Area Plan that we just passed. There was a little tip of the hat to affordable housing, but we're hoping to be much more bold this time with the Near Northwest Area Plan to pass plans for community land trusts and other tandem housing options that will allow that part of town to grow and grow smartly. Constituent services was mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, we have a big problem on Quebec. Over on Federal Boulevard, I was successful in securing $2.85 million worth of bond funding in the 2017 GEO bond. It's really important that we have a city council person who's willing to fight for bond money and advocate for streets that otherwise don't have the ability to advocate for themselves. Budget approval in the past, basically the city council has given some feedback to Mayor Hancock, but for the most part, this has been a big rubber stamping. And I'm really hoping that that changes with the next administration and the next mayor. Legislation is another one. A lot of my donors are current and former city council people because working well with others and disagreeing well with others is really important to building coalition and getting things done on city council and getting legislation passed. So I think that's a really important aspect. Finally, as Brad mentioned, we'll be confirming appointees now as city council people and as Christian mentioned, large contracts. Thank you.
So in regards to zoning that we will be doing on city council, they all did a very good job of listing what we do, but in regards to zoning, I would want to protect the easement at the Park Hill Golf Course. Right now, there's an effort to develop that land, and while I think affordable housing and bringing grocery stores to the district, I don't believe the promises that are being made there, and I believe that we can't do it at the expense of our green space, which we have promised to future generations in the form of the perpetual conservation easement. So I would be fighting in that regards to acquire the land and make it a city park. Also, in regards to zoning, I think we need to expand accessory dwelling units as the unaffordability of our city. I don't see a future where my mother-in-law can afford to buy another house, where we can buy another house in Denver. So I would like to be able to have the zoning so that we can have an accessory dwelling unit at my house. And I know that would benefit many of my neighbors. So that's something that I would fight to do in regards to budgeting. I think that a mentally healthy and a wealthy city is a safe city. And so I would want to spend more resources on advancing mental health and addressing severe poverty for those in our communities so that we can achieve a safer city without investing in more police and instead be able to manage our city with the police force that we have. I also think that they've mentioned that constituent services is an important role of a city council person. Through my involvement with the neighborhood orgs in the district and particularly the Democratic Party, I am well versed in working with the community, and so I would be very involved with co-governing with my neighbors, and I want to receive feedback because I'm not an expert in everything, so I would rely on my neighbors to help me know things better than I know myself.
For our next question, we'll start with Leslie, if you don't mind coming up. As I said, Central Park United Neighbors is the registered neighborhood organization for this community. The number one thing that residents have asked us about, reached out to us about in the past year is crime. It's rising in District 8, it's rising across Denver. And I'd like you to speak to how you would address these issues from your seat on City Council.
For that question, and there's a reason why I brought it up in my opening statement as well. This is an issue that's happening all across District 8. We're talking about petty thefts, things stolen from cars. We're talking about actual cars being stolen. We're talking about carjackings, crimes against people. On East Colfax, almost every Monday, there's a list of people who got harmed by guns overnight. One of the things I would want to do is continue Councilwoman Amanda Sawyer's gun buyback program. I think it's very important. One of the things that City Council did in 2022 is they passed the largest police budget of all time that is going to add over time 188 new officers and 40 new positions, including more detectives. I think this is very important because I don't know about you guys, but I no longer feel comfortable shopping at night on the Quebec King Soopers or at the Quebec Walmart. I won't go there at night anymore. I think that this is fundamentally a less safe neighborhood than it was before. And when I say neighborhood, I mean not just Central Park, but Park Hill as well, East Colfax as well, and Montbello. I look forward to the addition of those additional police officers. But what I think fundamentally is our crime has gone up because we have a significantly stratified society now, where there's an immense number of people who literally can't afford to live and stay in the city of Denver. And that leads to a feeling of disenfranchisement. You've got a lot of young people who are growing up in a city that they're not going to be able to stay in. And so all of these things feed in, mental health feeds in, and I think that we are going to need to spend a lot more money on mental health, substance abuse issues, and not just policing alone. So thank you very much.
All right, so with safety and crime, there's a few things that we have to look at. I live in East Colfax, which is one of the highest crime rates in our city. We have two hotspots, places where police often are patrolling. And I think that's important to know that they are patrolling. They are at a disadvantage because they don't have enough workforce labor, right? A lot of the times we blame them for what is happening, and that's fine. They're here to protect and serve. But at some point, we have to take accountability for the safety of our neighborhood. These are a few ways that I've done that in East Colfax. I started a neighborhood walking group, East Colfax neighborhood walking group, and there's reasons why that's important for safety. One, you connect to the people who live around you. You can identify with them, you know them, and when you are more connected in your neighborhood, you're more likely to look out for your neighbors. Somebody's breaking into your car, call them, go get them, or call the police, or watch out for people's house. That happens, okay? And so one thing that I also hope that launches into is what is called citizen patrol groups. Anybody familiar with the Guardian Angels? The Guardian Angels are Colfax, right? The idea is that they are volunteers who patrol their neighborhoods, right? We can recruit these people to patrol the neighborhood that they live in. They have more accountability and responsibility to that. Now, there are some models of neighborhood safety programs across the nation where this is like community policing, where people come together and are trained. We're not talking about just anybody who are interested, but people are trained to be able to patrol and create safety visibility in their uniforms for their neighborhood. You recruit people who live in the neighborhood to protect your neighborhood. And so in combination with working with police, I think this is one of the good, one of the plans that could work. So thank you.
There. So everyone in District 8 deserves to feel safe, period. And I'm mindful of some of the things I think some of the folks, if you live in Central Park, have seen recently with some of the carjackings that have happened near Northfield High School. The woman who was just delivering something to somebody's house. And someone tried to steal her car, and then she tried to stop it and ended up with some pretty severe injuries. You know, when I knock on doors, and I was recently doing that here in Central Park, I was dismayed at how many people talk about all the gunshots they hear at night. And a lot of times, you know, a kid who's 4 or 5 years old, pretty close to my daughter's age, will come to the door and say, yeah, it keeps me up at night too. And I know that's not just something that happens in Central Park, it happens all over the district. But really, you know, as I talk to people in District 8, I've talked to, District 8 actually spans 2 different police districts, so District 2 and District 5. And I've talked to Commander Bancroft, who recently retired, and then Commander Penn as well. And as you talk to all these people, I think I came up with sort of 3 things that I think we need to do. So first, I think we need a dedicated unit within DPD to target auto theft. You know, as you may know, the park and ride near the Central Park Light Rail Station is the #2 spot for auto theft in the entire city. I think, I don't remember myself, but I think the other thing we need to do is grow our alternate response methods and programs. When you have police officers going from call to call to call, there's a lot of things that an armed police officer does not need to respond to, and they should be more focused on things that are urgent 911 calls, especially as 911 response times go up. And then finally, I think we need to grow a more community policing model here in Denver. If we should be able to know who your officers are, what their phone numbers are, you should see them at more community events. They shouldn't just show up to recite sort of facts and figures on a PowerPoint slide at RNO meetings. So those are the things I would say we need to do.
Thank you. So we all deserve to be safe at our homes, works, and in our community. Not only from violence, but from the economic, social, and environmental conditions that fuel violence. We need to address the social determinants of health and safety in order to prevent violence at the root causes. The best way to address these issues are in implementing preventative health and safety initiatives by providing robust mental health care, lifting people out of poverty, and providing our neighbors with the support of the community. We can overcome factors that cause people to turn to violence and achieve a new vision of public safety. So I really believe that by investing in mental health and lifting people out of poverty, that will reduce crime to a level that is sustainable for our current police force. I also think that we should invest in programs like the STAR program that is you know, using resources to have people trained in mental health address those issues, so that we're not using our cops to address those issues, so that they can focus on the severe crimes that, you know, need someone with a gun to address. And so I also think that we need to be hiring police officers that live in their communities, and so that they know their neighbors and they can they have these relationships that can better help them to de-escalate issues before they go to a point where people are being arrested. Recently, my mother-in-law, she goes downtown to her English classes, and she had a very scary experience where she was nearly attacked by a person experiencing a mental health crisis, and it's made her scared to go to her English classes, and she's now no longer going to Emily Griffiths for those classes. And so this is an issue that's really important to me in this community, and I think that we should do whatever we can to make our community.
no. You cannot arrest your way out of poverty. Crime is a symptom of poverty. And so if you provide folks the opportunity and the resources and you're investing in their communities, that's how you address crime. When we talk about crime, when we talk about auto thefts, when we talk about violence, folks aren't violent. Folks aren't stealing cars because they have extra cars that are just, in their homes. Folks are doing these things because they don't have the resources or the access to those resources to be able to survive and ultimately thrive. And so when we talk about crime, we really have to get to the root causes of what folks are experiencing to cause them to participate in those kinds of behaviors. What I know from the work that I've done with the Denver Police Department, what I know from the work that I've done in gang reduction, I work with youth who have been gang involved, is that when you give them opportunities, they take those opportunities and they build a life for themselves. And that's what it looks like from the city council level is, what are we doing with our dollars? How are we allocating our dollars to address these things? In addition to that, our officers are overburdened. We have, when we talk about a response to crime, when Leslie talks about 45 minutes for a police officer to respond to an active crime, it begs the question is, how are officers spending their crime? How are officers spending their time? And should we be looking at maybe taking off some of those responsibilities from officers and putting those in a bucket somewhere else? When we talk about low-level crimes, when we talk about petty crimes, that's an opportunity for us to really evaluate, like, the things that we are doing, are they actually working? And if they're not working, why do we continue to do the same thing over and over and over? And so we can't address crime without talking about poverty, because crime is directly correlated to poverty, and opportunities for people prevents crime.
Tyler, you'll be up first for this next question. Before this comment for our guests watching over Zoom, you may notice that the camera is zooming in and out on candidates inconsistently. I just want you to know it's an automated system. There's nothing we can do about it. So if at home you're wondering like why it's zooming in on me or following me over there sometimes or anything like that, it's an automatic system. Lawrence, thank you so much for all your help. All right, so the next question, another really prominent topic that Denverites face right now are a surprising number of unhoused. And what policies would you advocate to address this issue? And can you specifically speak to your view on unsanctioned encampments for people experiencing homelessness?
So I believe that we need to have policies in our city that uplifts people as a shelter first policy where we proactively outreach to people and get them into shelter, provide them with mental health care. Currently under our system, a lot of the programs you need to be off drugs in order to receive access to housing. And I think that we need to be proactively meeting people where they are and embracing them with open arms. I think currently our policies harass and marginalize an already vulnerable group, and I don't believe that's the way to go about it. I think that we need to be addressing homelessness with our hearts and compassion, and providing people with the resources they need to get their lives together. I believe that people don't want to be homeless, and if they have access to programs and opportunities to get off the streets, that they would take them. And so that's what I would be advocating for city council. I don't believe in arresting people for being poor. I believe in providing them with resources and helping people in their darkest hour. And so that is how I would address the issue, is from a place of compassion and a place of healing.
So housing is a human right. Housing is easy for me. When we talk about unsanctioned camping, folks don't camp because they have somewhere to go. Folks camp because they have nowhere to go. And what we know is that the sweeps don't work. The sweeps just take the things that folks have, their licenses, their social security cards, their birth certificates, their all of their possessions, and they lose them. and they have to get those things back again. That is not an effective use of our resources. Particularly, that's not an effective use of your tax dollars. What we should be doing is implementing a housing first model, right? Where we are getting as many folks into housing as possible. I don't know if you all have visited a shelter recently. They're not glorious. I'll say that lightly. That's not a place in which folks feel safe. And so when we talk about investing our dollars in shelters, like that should be a place that people feel safe, that they feel understood, that they feel welcome, that they feel dignified in. That's an opportunity that we have to invest our dollars in shelters and housing first models and social housing. We have an opportunity to do social housing here in Colorado, in the city and county of Denver, if we have the courage, right, to be able to do so as a city. I truly believe that we are all the assets, that each one of you are the assets, and there is a responsibility for us to invest our dollars in our greatest assets, each of you, and not if you have a house or not if you don't have a house, but every single person in this community is a part of our community, regardless of their housing status. That's the opportunity that we have. There are preventative measures that we can take as well to address housing. Like folks become unhoused when their cars are stolen, right? Because they may not be able to get to work. So when we talk about threading these issues together, crime, housing, healthcare, education, they're all connected. And if we're only looking at these issues in silos, then we're never going to address the issue. And thank you.
Thank you. If I might just give an idea of what we have going on Federal Boulevard, we don't have a lot of homeless tent encampments right now. And many of our unhoused are members of our community that are not only working in our restaurants, they're customers in our restaurants, and we have a lot more housing on Federal. Right now, we have a SOS tent camp at 2nd and Federal. We recently had one at 50th and Federal. Those have gone really well. And so what I would like to do is a more humane approach to these folks who are currently in disorganized tent camps and try to get them into more substantial housing. There, but for the grace of God go I. I have been in some of the shelters lately. They're awful. If my family found ourselves unhoused, my husband and my oldest child over there would have to be separated from myself and my other 2 children. And I don't know what would even have happened to our dog. Our shelters are not a good option right now. I would choose to probably as well keep my family together and keep us all in a tent or 2 so that we can all stay together. But that's our only choice, is the current shelter system where people are lined up in beds and it looks like a prison. Nobody's going to go in there. And that's what you see now. Right now, our mayoral administration has relied almost completely on nonprofits. And as you can see, it's not going well. So I would like to bring more of the budget for homelessness solutions in-house in the city, not shirk it off on nonprofits that may or may not be doing good jobs. Finally, I want to address something. A lot of us think that people are intense because they're mentally ill or they're on drugs. That is often not the case. Though for those who are, I want to talk about budgets for treating more chronic drug and mental illness issues and not just emergency triage events. Thank you.
You've heard a lot of great ideas from the other candidates here, and what I'll just add is, our current approach doesn't work. And unfortunately, whether we're talking about the sweeps or people in camping on the streets, to me, they're both 2 sides of the same coin, where people are not getting the access to housing that they need. And I do believe housing is human. And nobody's getting access to the services they need either. I've toured several safe outdoor space sites. And find them to be a remarkable and very cost-effective tool that we should be using more of to help people get into safe spaces as they get transition off the street. And I think the most important thing about safe outdoor spaces is it's a 6-month stay that you can have there. And what that does, and as if I talk to the service providers and people that have lived in the safe outdoor spaces, the most important thing is it allows you to build a relationship with the people that are in them. And what that does is it allows you to help connect them to services. People either being swept or just camping on the streets, it's really hard to build a relationship with folks that way. And I think the short-term answer to what we need to do is dramatically expand the number of safe outdoor spaces we have. And then second, is we need to build more transitional and long-term, housing first policies around making sure people can get into housing and then provide them the supportive services that they want and are willing to accept and meet. If you've never read the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative's report on the root causes of homelessness, among other things, the main cause or one of the main causes is the cost of housing in Denver. Until you solve that problem, and make sure we build more housing and make sure we build it at all levels of income affordability, we're never going to solve any of these problems. So, really, I think getting down to the root cause, both in a short-term and a long-term perspective, is we just need to build more housing.
I feel very connected to this. So I've been homeless 4 times in my lifetime. I actually am a homeowner now, so it's nice to see one into the. But I want to say this: I do not support the cap sweeps. One of the things that it does is demonizes human beings. A lot of us are very focused on homelessness, and we need to be able to look these people in our eyes and say hi, give them some sort of humanity. That is first for me. We also work with the safe outdoor space camps, as I was talking about. We actually have one in our district at Area P. Taylor Building in Marbello. I would advise you go check that out. But we create you can do more to create pipelines to mental health resources, pipelines to housing opportunities. My department, which is the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, you'll say DOTI, that's the acronym. We actually did $122,000 in micro grants, community-led projects. And so one of the grants was to Marbello Organizing Committee to put welcome packets together for the SOS camp in Marbello, right? So the idea of humanity, and this is to help them get back and forth wherever they're going, so transportation related items to make them feel safe. I think we can work with hotels, recreation centers, and libraries to create more emergency shelters. In cold weather just like this, we have the building spaces, we should use them. The citizen patrol that I talked about before, those are helpful because one of the primary roles of those groups is to do mental health and wellness checks, right? That's really important for us to remember. We also need more mental health outpatient clinics. We actually don't have a lot of them. Some of the closest in my neighborhood would have been the Fitzsimmons campus, but we don't have enough of those, so we can have those people address those issues as they come. So that's part of my solutions. Maybe.
We have time for one more question before we're going to open up the room to let you all ask your questions one-on-one with the candidates. And question, we'll start with Brad Rivera. The question here is, you're in Central Park. This is Central Park United Neighbors, but District 8 is made up of a lot more than just Central Park. The office that you see represents residents from a lot of different neighborhoods with a lot of different needs. So the question really is, how do you view your responsibility to balance these different needs given, limited resources and capacity? So I'll call it out. I get this question quite a bit. And my top line answer is you serve everybody equally, but you also need to serve everybody equitably too. And I tell this to folks like I am right here to you all in Central Park. This neighborhood, and I think there's a concern that especially if I were to be elected, that if historically, when someone is from Central Park and they represent Central Park and other neighborhoods too, as part of that, whether in any seat, any elected official role, there's a tendency just to focus on Central Park. At least that's the perception. And I am very mindful of that. And that's something I hear a lot when I'm out in different parts of District 8. And so when I say serve everybody equitably, it's knowing that, and one of my key platforms on my website is around equitable investment in our neighborhoods. Central Park has 4 grocery stores. The other neighborhoods in this district don't necessarily have. East Colfax, although I know they're about to go get one, which is really exciting, does not have a ballot box. Central Park has 2. And so the role of this person in District 8 and representing on city council is to make sure that you're doing the work for everybody. But the most of the work, the partnership that you're going to do has to be in Park Hill, has to be in Montbello, and has to be in East Colfax. I think it's something everybody has to be mindful of as they think about this district. And it's something I want to tackle not only just through myself and my work and being accessible to everybody, but through my community cabinet and make sure we're being properly informed. If I have any blind spots, they're being addressed. And I think that's really important to talk about when it comes to representing this district. So thank you.
A large part of why I'm running for city council is because I feel like under the past administration, the needs of my neighborhood and Montbello have not been met. In Central Park, you guys have grocery stores, you guys have nice parks, you guys have access to a lot of things that we don't have in Montbello. And so I think that while I very much care about the needs of the rec center in Central Park, and safe streets are important to everyone, but the focus of my administration would be righting the past wrongs and making sure we get access to healthy food in Park Hill, Montbello, East Colfax. Making sure that we have programs like the Montbello Connector in other neighborhoods so that people can access public transit. And I think that's something that people in Central Park would benefit from too, because not everyone in Central Park is wealthy. People need to also use RTD in Central Park. And so I think I was recently asked at the Democratic Party's meeting that by someone that wanted to know about how I would solve the refugee problem, closing down the Central Park Rec Center. And when city priorities are being prioritized, that there are winners and losers, but at the end of the day, I would while I think that the rec center is a valuable asset for the city, if I was choosing between the refugees, people's lives versus people's workouts, I would be choosing people's lives. And so while you have to make hard decisions and there are priorities to balance, I would lean on prioritizing those who need the help the most. Thank you.
So I told you all that I believe that the health of our city is the wealth of our city. And my goal is to make sure that D8 is the healthiest district in the city and county of Denver. And I think we do that by having conversations. So I'm often in my work as an RTD director, I'm in my work as a VP at the Colorado Coalition. And then also over the summer, I got to spend some time at Harvard with some electeds from across the nation. And during that time, we had the opportunity to build consensus, really to understand what their issues were and thanks. To understand what their issues are, what their values were, and what was important. And so when we talk about balance, the balance is figuring out where is the opportunity for us to find alignment. I think we spend a lot of time figuring out what our differences are, and maybe not a lot of time figuring out where the similarities are. It doesn't have to be you versus me, this community versus this community. It could just be dialogue. And I think we've come very far away from having dialogue and citizens. I feel like we're so much more sophisticated than we tend to show up as. And so when we talk about balance, my work has been that at the RTD board. It's much larger than Denver City Council. I actually had to manage 200,000 constituents, and so quite a few more, quite a few more neighborhoods. And you prioritize those that are closest to the pain, right? You make sure that those that are closest to the pain are closest to the decision making. And any decision that you are making, that's how you balance it. You understand that when those that are most vulnerable and marginalized rise, that we all rise. It's not a competition for any of us. There's enough for all of us to be able to live healthy, dignified lives. We just have to be committed to what that looks like collectively.
So I'm a community connector. You'll hear me say that over and over again. I'm a community connector for our district, so I'm already working in Montbello, I'm already working in East Colfax. I'm already working with Central Park, and Northeast Parkfield. One place I think we forget a little too often, is Northfield. One of the things that I do to connect our neighborhoods is our walking groups, right? That has been actually a nationwide program that I'm a part of, that has shown the connectivity to neighborhoods. It was one of the ways that I first met Brad a few years ago. He wanted to come to the walking group in East Colfax, right? He lives in this area, and to be able to create transportation as a youth park, right? So Central Park and we see the bike lane on Syracuse, right? Those are ways that connect neighborhoods. I was also part of the project team that brought the Montbello connector. So the idea is that modes of transportation, rather than be biking, walking, or shuttle services like the Montbello connector, this is how we connect to each other. I think that the more we're exposed to one another, that's important. It's also important to note that most of the votes come from Central Park, let's just be honest. Most of the votes come from here, so most of the candidates come from this area. We need to be able to make sure we have refugees and populations that are not, citizens, to be able to get them, or not the ones who are citizens, but get them to be able to vote. We need to be able to expand their voices and their power so they have more empowerment in the process in general, right? The stronger they are, the stronger we are as a district, and we all need to be able to connect and figure out what that is. Building coalitions, building relationships are essential to the connectivity, but we can't do it at desk, and we can't do it in the safety of our homes. We have to get out and see and be connected to our neighbors.
Thank you. So the question was, how do you balance various neighborhoods with limited resources? For starters, I think it's important to talk about, in 2022, we had a redistricting. Central Park was kept in its entirety. East Colfax was able to become one, but Park Hill and Montbello were divided. So one of the things that I'll be doing in the next in my first year would be working very closely with the new District 9 representative and the District 11 representative, Stacy Gilmore, to assist in so that our resources won't be as limited. Because these different neighborhoods that got chopped in half, that's not going to work policy wise. It will be so much easier for Central Park to pass policies or East Colfax to pass policies because they will have just one city council candidate. But Park Hill and Montbello won't have that. Park Hill and Montbello will have two. And I plan on taking good advantage of those two people, whoever they might be. One of them will be Stacy Gilmore. Don't know who will be in District 9, but working together with these other folks to help with our limited resources. Central Park, East Colfax, Montbello, Park Hill, we all have some problems in common, such as crime and the lack of safe transportation. Those we can all work together on. But then, yes, we have neighborhoods like East Colfax, the northern part of Montbello, that have suffered from decades of neglect or benign neglect in some cases. And so I will be focusing on those at the outset of my term. So thank you very much.
I've been on this board for more than 6 years, and I can assure you nothing goes to schedule the way this has gone to schedule. So I want to thank all of you for being such good followers, for doing what was asked, and for being here tonight. Thank you again. Let's for treating this event and treating each other with respect and dignity. It's nice to be. Thank you again to all of you who came out tonight. I look forward to just kind of turning the candidates over to all of you now. And any questions that you have, please feel free to join them. They're always set up tables here at various edges of the room. And just one last thing as we close out the night, Amanda Steffen is here. She is from Councilman Herndon's office. I'd like to thank her office and Councilman Herndon for all of your service in this role. Thank you, everybody. I hope this is available. Have a good evening and enjoy the good evening. From that. Yeah.